Question number 1. What services used to enable the just-in-time virtual machine access feature? And the options are 1. Azure Policy, 2. Azure Firewall, 3. Azure NAT Gateway, 4. Azure Security Center. And the correct answer is option 4, Azure Security Center. Explanation. Option 4 is the correct answer. Just-in-time access provides access to the virtual machine only for a specified amount of time. This is one of the security methods you can use to protect your VMs in Azure. Use the Azure Security Center's just-in-time virtual machine access feature to lock down inbound traffic to Azure virtual machines. This makes it easier to connect to the VM when needed, while reducing the risk of exposure. Option 1 is incorrect. Azure Bastion cannot configure just-in-time access to VMs. Option 2 is incorrect. Firewalls are incorrect because they are a service used to protect Azure resources in your virtual network. Option 3 is incorrect. With Azure Front Door, it's a feature that configures the routing of web applications. Next question. Which Azure services can implement operating system virtualization? And the options are 1. Azure Functions, 2. Azure App Service, 3. Azure Virtual Machines, 4. Azure Container Instances. And the correct answer is option 4, Azure Container Instances. Explanation. Option 4 is the correct answer. Azure Container Instances are correct because they provide operating system virtualization. Option 1 is incorrect. Azure Functions is incorrect because it is a serverless component of Azure. It does not provide operating system virtualization. Option 2 is incorrect. This is because you can use Azure App Service to host your web application, and Azure App Service is incorrect. It supports various languages such as Java, Ruby, PHP, Python, Node.js, and NAT. This is incorrect as it does not provide operating system virtualization. Option 3 is incorrect. Azure VMs are meant to provide hardware virtualization rather than operating system virtualization, and so Azure virtual machines are incorrect. Next question. Please select all the correct statements regarding Azure's SLA. And the options are 1. The SLA for Azure Active Directory Premium P2 is 99.9%. 2. The SLA for Azure Active Directory Premium P2 is 99.99%. 3. Azure Active Directory Premium P2 is guaranteed to be 100% available. 4. If the SLA result is below the target SLA, credit will be given out to a paid account. And the correct answer is option 2. The SLA for Azure Active Directory Premium P2 is 99.99%. And option 4. If the SLA result is below the target SLA, credit will be given out to a paid account. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. Azure Active Directory Premium P2 is guaranteed at least 99.99% availability and monthly uptime under a service level agreement. Option 4 is the correct answer. If it is below the SLA, all paid Azure customers will be credited. Next question. Please select the incorrect statement regarding a tool that is used for working with Azure resources. And the options are 1. The Azure PowerShell module can be installed on Mac OS. 2. Azure Cloud Shell needs to be accessed from Azure PowerShell. 3. You can also access the Azure portal from your Android device. 4. The Azure PowerShell module can be installed on Linux. And the correct answer is option 2. Azure Cloud Shell needs to be accessed from Azure PowerShell. Explanation. Option 2 is the incorrect statement. Azure Cloud Shell can be accessed from a web browser on your Linux computer. It is not essential to access Azure Cloud Shell from Azure PowerShell. Option 1 is a correct description. PowerShell can be installed on Mac OS. Option 3 is a correct description. The Azure portal can also be accessed from Linux iOS and Android devices for Azure mobile apps. Option 4 is a correct description. This is because you can run PowerShell on Linux, Windows, or Mac OS platforms. Linux computers support the Firefox browser and can access Cloud Shell from the Azure portal. Next question. Which tools would you use to create a new Azure virtual machine from an Android tablet? Please select all. And the options are: 1. Use Azure Terminal. 2. Use SSH software. 3. Use the Azure portal. 4. Use Bash with Azure Cloud Shell. 5. Use PowerShell with Azure Cloud Shell. And the correct answers are: Option 3. Use the Azure portal. Option 4. Use Bash with Azure Cloud Shell. And Option 5. Use PowerShell with Azure Cloud Shell. Explanation. Options 3, 4 and 5 are correct. The Azure portal can run on tablet devices that have the Android OS installed. The browser can be any type of IE 11, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, or the latest versions. You can access the Azure portal through these browsers. When you visit the portal, you will see Azure Cloud Shell. Users can then access Bash and PowerShell from within Azure Cloud Shell. You can use this to create Azure virtual machines. Option 1 is incorrect. Using the Power Apps portal is incorrect because Power Apps is a data platform that provides a rapid application development environment for building custom apps to meet your business needs. Option 2 is incorrect. SSH software is used to operate a virtual machines, such as a Linux server. It cannot be used to create a virtual machine. Next question. Choose the correct description of the way to access the data stored in the archive access layer of your Azure storage account. And the options are: 1. Copy data from the archive layer. 2. Vault data from the archive layer. 3. Restore data from the archive layer. 4. Rehydrate data from the archive layer. And the correct answer is option 4. Rehydrate data from the archive layer. Explanation. Option 4 is the correct answer. Before retrieving data from the archive layer, it must be rehydrated. Blobs are included in the archive access tier, but they are considered offline and cannot be read or modified. Blob metadata is available online and allows you to view a list of blobs and their properties. Blob data can only be read and modified by access layers such as hot and cool. There are two options for retrieving and accessing the data stored in the archived access layer. Rehydrate archived blobs to the access layer. Rehydrate archived blobs hot or cool by changing the tier using the set blob tier operation. Copy archived blobs to the access layer. Use the copy blobs operation to make a new copy of the archived blobs. Specify a different blob name and hot or cool as the destination layer. Next question. Please select all accurate resource group descriptions from the following options. And the options are: 1. All Azure resources deployed in a resource group must use the same Azure reason. 2. When you assign a tag to a resource group, all Azure resources in that resource group are assigned to the same tag. 3. When you assign an Azure policy to a resource group, all Azure resources in that resource group are assigned the same policy. 4. If you grant a user permission to a resource group, that user can manage all Azure resources in that resource group. And the correct answer is option 3. When you assign an Azure policy to a resource group, all Azure resources in that resource group are assigned the same policy. And option 4. If you grant a user permission to a resource group, that user can manage all Azure resources in that resource group. Explanation. Option 3 is the correct answer. When an Azure policy is applied to a resource group, that policy applies to all resources in that resource group. Option 4 is the correct answer. Assigning permissions to a user to manage a resource group allows the user to manage all Azure resources in that resource group. The reason is that the privileges granted to the resource group are inherited. Once a user is granted to access to a resource group, it can be used to scope access control for administrative actions. Option 1 is incorrect. All Azure resources deployed in a resource group do not have to use the same Azure reason. Option 2 is incorrect. Assigning a tag to a resource group does not mean that all Azure resources in that resource group are assigned to the same tag. Next question. You have created 5 virtual networks and 10 virtual machines, and you want to control the inbound traffic. What kind of settings do you need? And the options are: 1. It can be controlled by setting one network security group. 2. It can be controlled by setting 10 virtual network gateways. 3. It can be controlled by setting 10 Azure Express routes. 4. It can be controlled by setting one Azure firewall. And the correct answer is option 4. It can be controlled by setting one Azure firewall. Explanation. Option 4 is the correct answer. Azure Firewall is a managed cloud-based network security service that can protect multiple Azure virtual networks and resources inside. Option 1 is incorrect. Network security groups filter network traffic to and from Azure resources in your Azure virtual network. Option 2 is incorrect. Virtual network gateways are incorrect because they are used for two purposes: exchanging IP routes between networks and routing network traffic. Option 3 is incorrect. Azure Express route is incorrect because it is used to make a private connection between your Azure virtual network and your on-premises network. Next question. Choose the correct action to take if you want to increase your Azure subscription limit. And the options are: 1. Consolidate multiple subscriptions. 2. Upgrade your support plan. 3. Make a new support request. 4. Change your Azure policy. And the correct answer is option 3. Make a new support request. Explanation. Option 3 is the correct answer. You can request an increase in the limit by creating an Azure support request. Option 1 is incorrect. Creating a service health alert is not correct. This cannot increase your Azure subscription limit. Option 2 is incorrect. Support plan upgrades are more costly, but they provide more technical support. This has nothing to do with raising the limit. Option 4 is incorrect. It's incorrect because changing the Azure policy will not increase the subscription limit. Next question. Which Azure services are available for security information and event management? And the options are: 1. Azure Security Center. 2. Azure Monitor. 3. Azure Information Protection. 4. Azure Sentinel. And the correct answer is option 4. Azure Sentinel. Explanation. Option 4 is the correct answer. Azure Sentinel is a service that provides alert detection and threat responses to assist in threat detection. This is a scalable Azure service that also provides security information and event management (CAM) solution. Option 1 is incorrect. Azure Analysis Service helps users perform ad hoc data analysis using tools such as Power BI and Excel. Option 2 is incorrect. Azure Cognitive Service helps you incorporate cognitive intelligence into your applications. Option 3 is incorrect. Azure Information Protection is a cloud-based solution that enables organizations to detect, classify, and protect documents and emails by labeling content. Next question. You have built a payroll application in Azure. This application is very busy during the last week of the month, performing higher amounts of payroll processing. Which of the following is a characteristic of the cloud is helpful for this application in scenario? And the options are: 1. High availability. 2. High latency. 3. Elasticity. 4. Load distribution. And the correct answer is option 3. Elasticity. Explanation. Option 3 is the correct answer. Elastic computing is the ability to quickly scale or reduce computer processing, memory, and storage resources to meet changing demands without worrying about peak users capacity planning or engineering. This is called elasticity. This allows businesses to avoid paying for unused capacity and idle resources without having to worry about investing in the purchase or maintenance of additional resources or equipment. Option 1 is incorrect. High availability refers to the property of being less prone to system failure. Option 2 is incorrect. High latency means a slow response. Option 4 is incorrect. As the name implies, load distribution refers to a device that distributes load evenly. This can reduce the burden on one server and prevent outages. Next question. You are trying to mount a network drive to Azure storage from multiple computers running Windows 10. Choose the action you need to make to create a storage solution in Azure for this mounted drive. And the options are 1. Azure Cosmos DB 2. Virtual Machine Data Disk 3. Azure Files 4. Azure Storage Account Blob Service. And the correct answer is option 3. Azure Files. Explanation. Option 3 is the correct answer. Azure Files provides fully managed file sharing in the cloud, accessible via the industry standard server message block protocol. Azure File can be mounted simultaneously via cloud or on-premises deployments on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. In addition, you can use Azure File Sync to cache your Azure file on Windows Server for quick access to where your data is being used. Option 1 is incorrect. Azure Cosmos DB is a fully managed NoSQL database service for modern app development. It's incorrect because it's not meant to create a storage solution. Option 2 is incorrect. Adding a data disk to a VM is incorrect because this adds additional capacity on only VM and is not for a shared storage solution. Option 4 is incorrect. Azure Blob Storage is Microsoft's object storage solution for the cloud. Blob storage is optimized for storing large amounts of unstructured data, such as textual and binary data. It's incorrect because it's not meant to create a storage solution. Next question. You need a VPN connection from your virtual network to your on-premises computer, creating an IPsec tunnel over the network interface. Which gateway do you need to configure to achieve this? And the options are 1. Root-based virtual network gateway 2. Root-based virtual customer gateway 3. Policy-based virtual network gateway 4. Policy-based virtual customer gateway. And the correct answer is option 1. Root-based virtual network gateway. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. The VPN gateway is used when creating a VPN connection to your on-premises network. For a point-to-site connection from your virtual network to your on-premises computer, you would configure a root-based virtual network gateway. Number 1. Policy-based VPN devices. Use a combination of prefixes from both networks to define how traffic is encrypted or decrypted through an IPsec tunnel. It is typically built on a firewall device that performs packet filtering. IPsec tunnel encryption and decryption is added to the packet filtering and processing engine. Number 2. Route-based VPN devices. Use any traffic selector to forward the routing or forwarding table to traffic to different IPsec tunnels. It is typically built on a router platform where each IPsec tunnel is modeled as a network interface or VTI virtual tunnel interface. Therefore, option 1 is the correct answer. Next question. You need to divide and manage Azure resources by department for your company. What is the most suitable way to divide Azure resources for this purpose? And the options are 1. Use multiple AZs 2. Use multiple Azure accounts 3. Use multiple subscriptions 4. Use multiple resource groups. And the correct answer is option 3. Use multiple subscriptions. Explanation. Option 3 is the correct answer. If you grant multiple subscriptions for each department, you are able to achieve this requirement. You can segment Azure like this to easily manage Azure resources through different subscriptions. each associated with the department of your company. Option 1 is incorrect. Multiple AZs do not provide an appropriate way to segmentation Azure resources by department. Option 2 is incorrect. Granting multiple Azure accounts makes it difficult to manage as whole, so it's more appropriate to separate them by subscription. Option 4 is incorrect. Multiple resource groups cannot be segmented by department. Next question. You have set up 4 virtual machines and are implementing traffic control with a public load balancer. What would you use to transfer all remote desktop protocol connections to only one virtual machine? And the options are 1. Network Security Group Inbound Rules. 2. Azure Firewall Inbound Rules. 3. Network Security Group Outbound Rules. 4. Inbound NAT Rules. And the correct answer is option 4. Inbound NAT Rules. Explanation. Option 4 is the correct answer. You can use a load balancer to create inbound NAT rules to port traffic from a particular port on a particular front-end IP address to another port on another backend instance in your virtual network. This is also achieved by the same hash-based distribution as load distribution. A common scenario for this is a remote desktop protocol or secure shell session to an individual VM instances in an Azure virtual network. Options 1, 2, and 3 are incorrect because each cannot be configured to transfer only to a specific virtual machine. Question number 16. Which of the following services monitors your web application? And the options are 1. Azure Advisor. 2. Azure Application Insights. 3. Azure DevOps. 4. Azure Monitor. And the correct answer is option 2. Azure Application Insights. Explanation. Option 2 is the correct answer. Application Insights is a feature of Azure Monitor, an application performance management service for developers and DevOps professionals. You can use this service to monitor running applications. It automatically detects performance anomalies and uses powerful built-in analytics tools to diagnose problems and understand what users are doing with the app. Option 1 is incorrect. Azure Advisor is incorrect, as it is a tool which provides guidance and recommendations for improving your Azure environment. Option 3 is incorrect. Azure DevOps is a service for teams to share code, track work, and ship software. It is incorrect because it does not monitor your web application. Option 4 is incorrect. Azure Monitor monitors and analyzes infrastructure and network performance to identify issues in real time, but it's incorrect because it doesn't monitor web applications. Next question. Which file type should you use to copy files into your storage account using the Azure Import or Export service? And the options are 1. CSV file, 2. JSON file, 3. PowerShell PS1 file, 4. XML file. And the correct answer is option 1. CSV file. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. The Azure Import or Export service requires you to use a CSV file to copy the file to your storage account. The Azure Import or Export service can securely import large amounts of data into Azure Blob Storage and Azure Files by sending disk drives to your Azure data center. A dataset CSV file is the value of the dataset flag in a CSV file that contains a list of directories or files to copy to the target drive. To create an import job, first decide which directories and files to import. You can specify a list of directories, a list of unique files, or a combination of the two. If a directory is included, all files in that directory and subdirectories are added to the import job. Next question. You can store up to 5 TB of data in your Azure storage account. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it is no. Explanation. The correct answer is no. Azure storage accounts can contain unlimited files and petabytes of data. Next question. Azure storage account uses charges are only incurred based on the amount of stored data. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it is no. Explanation. The correct answer is no. If you see generic V2 as the storage account type, you will be charged for read and write operations in addition to storage cost. Also note that the cost of read and write operations depends on the type of reason selected, the redundancy, etc. This means that there are other factors that incur cost. Next question. You can keep your associated Azure AD tenant even after your Azure subscription expires. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it is yes. Explanation. The correct answer is yes. Azure AD tenants are not automatically deleted when your Azure subscription expires. Also, multiple Azure subscriptions may be linked to a single Azure AD tenant. In this case, if one of your subscriptions expires, the other subscriptions will continue to work because the Azure AD tenant still exists. Next question. Azure multi-factor authentication can also be configured for non-administrative user accounts. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it is yes. Explanation. The correct answer is yes. MFA is required for both administrative and non-administrative user accounts. This is a type of authentication that requires users to have passwords, tokens, or fingerprints. Next question. You cannot associate the same subscription with multiple Azure AD tenants. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it is yes. Explanation. The correct answer is yes. The answer here is true because each Azure subscription is associated with only a single AD tenant, not multiple AD tenants. An Azure subscription has a trust relationship with Azure Active Directory. A subscription trusts Azure AD to authenticate users, services, and devices. Multiple subscriptions can trust the same Azure AD directory. Each subscription can only trust a single directory. Next question. You can change the Azure AD tenant with which your Azure subscription is associated. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it is yes. Explanation. When a user logs into the Azure portal, they have the option to change directories after clicking on the image under Login at the far right of the portal. Multiple subscriptions can trust the same Azure AD directory. Each subscription can only trust a single directory. One or more Azure subscriptions can establish a trust relationship with an instance of Azure Active Directory in order to authenticate and authorize security principals and devices against Azure services. When a subscription expires, the trusted instance of the Azure AD service remains, but the security principals lose access to Azure resources. Next question. You can use your identity stored in your on-premises Active Directory to access your Azure resources. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it is yes. Explanation. The correct answer is yes. This is because Azure AD Identity Governance allows identities stored in Azure AD, third-party cloud services, and on-premises AD to access Azure resources. Next question. You can have multiple Azure subscriptions associated with an individual Azure resource group. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it is no. Explanation. The correct answer is no. A single Azure subscription can contain multiple Azure resource groups, one-to-many relationships, whereas resource groups belong to only one subscription, one-to-one relationship. Next question. Please select the option to fill in the following blank. Your Azure trial account expired last week. Dash. And the options are 1. So you cannot start an existing Azure virtual machine. 2. So you can no longer add users to Azure AD. 3. So you can no longer access the data stored in Azure. 4. So all the services you are using have stopped. And the correct answer is option 1. So, you cannot start an existing Azure virtual machine. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. If you try to start an existing virtual machine after your subscription has expired, you will see an error. Option 2 is incorrect. It is incorrect because you can still add a user account to AD. Option 3 is incorrect. Access to the data stored in Azure is incorrect here, as the storage is still accessible but is read-only. Option 4 is incorrect. You can still access the Azure portal and reactivate and upgrade expired subscriptions on the portal. Next question. Which model of cloud service is Azure Cosmos DB? And the options are 1. Serverless, 2. Infrastructure as a service, 3. Software as a service, 4. Platform as a service. And the correct answer is option 4. Platform as a service. Explanation. Option 4 is the correct answer. Cosmos DB is a PaaS provided by Microsoft Azure and is a cloud-based NoSQL database. Cosmos DB, sometimes referred to as a serverless database, is a highly available and reliable database. Cosmos DB is a superset of Azure Document DB and is available in all Azure regions. Next question. What should you use to see the number of past failed requests in the application gateway? And the options are 1. Azure Monitor, 2. Azure Network Watcher Connection Monitor, 3. Application Insights, 4. Application Gateway Metrics. And the correct answer is option 4. Application Gateway Metrics. Explanation. Option 4 is the correct answer. The application gateway has 13 different metrics that users can use to troubleshoot application gateway performance issues, which allow users to compare the total number of requests with the number of failed requests. Option 1 is incorrect. Azure Monitor monitors and analyzes infrastructure and network performance and identifies problems in real time, which is irrelevant. Option 2 is incorrect. Azure Network Watcher Connection Monitor is incorrect. This is used to check the network connectivity of virtual machines for multi-tiered applications. That is, when the front-end web server VM communicates with the database server VM. It is incorrect because the total number of requests cannot be compared with the number of failed requests. Option 3 is incorrect. Application Insights is a feature of Azure Monitor, an extensible application performance management service for developers and DevOps professionals. It is incorrect because the total number of requests and the number of failed requests cannot be compared here. Next question. You are planning to migrate your server from your on-premises environment to Azure. The DB server must be configured on a separate network segment to ensure data security. Which Azure solution should you use to achieve this? And the options are 1. Divide it into one resource group for the DB server and another resource group for all other servers. 2. Divide it into VPN for DB server and VPN for other servers. 3. Divide it into NSG for DB server and NSG for other servers. 4. Divide it into a subnet for the DB server and another subnet for all other servers. 5. Divide it into a virtual network for the DB server and another virtual network for all other servers. And the correct answer is option 5. Divide it into a virtual network for the DB server and another virtual network for all other servers. Explanation. Option 5 is the correct answer. For the virtual network for the server, you need to have another virtual network for the other server. In this scenario, it must be on a different network. That is to say, it should be isolated from the rest of the network. Option 1 is incorrect. It is incorrect to divide the resource group for the DB server and another resource group for all other servers because all the resource groups share the same virtual network. Option 2 is incorrect. Even if you divide the VPN for the DB server and the VPN for all other servers, all the resource groups will be placed in the same virtual network. Option 3 is incorrect. Even if you divide the NSG for the DB server and the NSG for other servers, all the resource groups will be placed in the same virtual network. Option 4 is incorrect. It is incorrect to separate subnet for the DB server and another subnet for all other servers because all resource groups are located within the same virtual network. Next question. Which billing accounts are supported by the Azure portal? Please select all applicable items. And the options are 1. Microsoft Online Services Program, 2. Microsoft Customer Agreement, 3. Paid Subscription Account, 4. Microsoft Enterprise Contract, 5. Microsoft Partner Agreement. And the correct answers are 1. Microsoft Online Services Program, 2. Microsoft Customer Agreement, 3. Paid Subscription Account, and option 4. Microsoft Enterprise Contract. Explanation. Option 1 is the correct answer. The Azure portal supports the Microsoft Online Services Program. This creates a separate billing account for the Microsoft Online Services Program when you sign up for Azure from the Azure website. For example, you can sign up for an Azure free account, a pay-as-you-go account, or sign up as a Visual Studio subscriber. Option 2 is the correct answer. Microsoft Customer Agreement is supported when your organization works with a Microsoft representative to enter into a Microsoft Customer Agreement. A Microsoft Customer Agreement billing account is created. In some regions, a Microsoft Customer Agreement billing account may also be created if you sign up for a pay-as-you-go account from the Azure website, or if you upgrade your Azure free account. Option 4 is the correct answer. Microsoft Enterprise Contracts are supported when your organization enters into an enterprise agreement to use Azure. An enterprise agreement billing account is created. Option 5 is the correct answer. Microsoft Partner Agreement is supported. Microsoft Partner Agreement billing accounts are created by cloud solution provider partners to manage their customers with a new commerce experience. Thank you for watching this video. Buy our AZ 900 premium questions with 50% off. Check link in the description.